What up, people? Welcome back to the Doing Everything Different podcast. I'm your host, Devin Lars. And something that's been on my mind recently is how much power there is in just getting started. It's been something that I've been thinking about and really centered around kind of fitness and health since the last or a few episodes ago when I talked to George around how he was able to kind of transform his life from going to 300 plus pounds to 100 and something and in shape. And it wasn't something that happened overnight, right? It was like a process that he followed and trusting in the process. And I think that for so long, especially specifically around kind of like working out and getting into shape, I always would like get started and then I would just kind of like fall off, right? So like it'd be this like ongoing thing where it's like, okay, you want to see immediate results, or after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, you don't see results and then you just stop. And I think that it's like that in business, fitness, health. Like there's just so many things that I think that we go through in life that we want to see results and we want to see results fast. And so what I'm just really learning about is just trusting the process. And I've said this before, I've recorded episodes around this, but it's just something that's really been on my mind around the power in just getting started and trusting that it's going to work and finding some ways to connect with the process instead of the results. And so like, for instance, what I'm doing now is I put together after I talked to George, it's funny, put together a 10-week program of like working out and getting into shape. And I wrote down all of the stuff that I want to do for the 10 weeks on the specific days. And then every day I put it in my home gym and I'm able to cross off kind of every movement, every workout that I do. And it's been allowing me to focus on the day and focus on crossing off that specific thing versus like the end result and at the end, goals of how I'm going to look and how I'm going to feel after the 10 weeks. And it was funny because I got to like the end of week 2 going into week 3. And it was kind of like, all right, I'm kind of seeing results, but I'm not. And it was at that time where I really like usually would stop and give up because I'm like, it's not working. It's not, whatever. And so this past weekend, I was driving. I did a road trip, and it takes about 3-4 hours to get to where I was going. And as I was driving, I was like, it's funny because the end result is like the goal that I want, right? So I'm driving on this path, and I want to go from point A to point B. And I was thinking, I'm like, okay, this is a 3-hour drive, and I correlated it to anything in life. I'm like, okay, if you're going on this road trip and you're driving for 25 minutes and you're like, oh, I'm not seeing results, I'm not getting to my destination, but it's a 3-hour trip, are you just going to stop it and not keep driving? And so it was just something that, like, I know it sounds weird or whatever, but it was just something that I had to kind of think about in my head of like, okay, this process, when I start to look at something that I need to accomplish, I'm looking at it now as like a road trip. And just because you don't see the end destination when you're 25 minutes into a 3-hour drive doesn't mean that you're not going to get there. It means that you have to start in that first 25 minutes in order to, to get there and to see it all the way through. And so I'm just trying to change my perspective and I keep telling myself, just keep driving. And I think that it's something that can, I think you can translate into anything, in the business, into anything that you want to accomplish that requires a lot of discipline and a lot of control. And I think just really understanding and believing and trusting in that process. It's like there's very few things in life that are guaranteed. And I think for me, working out and getting in shape, that's pretty much guaranteed. If you eat clean and you work out, you're going to get in shape. It's just going to happen, regardless how you feel about it, where you come from, whatever it is, you're going to get in shape. But for some reason, I had a hard time believing that it can happen to me. And so I think that's what I really like about these conversations and the podcast episodes and stuff like that, of just seeing George's transformation of what he went through and just kind of hearing it from him. It makes it obtainable. It makes it seem like, oh, maybe I can accomplish it too, right? Because sometimes you hear from people that have been in shape their entire life and they tell you how to get in shape, but it's kind of like, for me at least, it was like, well, you've always been like that, so I don't think that can happen to me because that's how you've always been, versus having somebody that wasn't always like that and then they were able to transform their life into it. And so I think it's very important to surround yourself and put yourself in environments with people that have done the thing that you want to do. And I realized like every next level of my life that I had to kind of get around the people that were doing the stuff that I wanted to make it, to give myself permission almost that I can do it. I signed up for this thing called the 4Ds. It was, I want to say in April or something like that. It was basically where Gary Vee hosts. He has a company called the Sasha Group that's under VaynerX or whatever, and they work with small businesses. And they basically, you can pay to do this very kind of intimate session with him and his team where they basically like walk through everything. It's only about 8 to 10 people, and they walk you through the process of how they work with big companies and how they do stuff. And it's like group consultations, and you get some time with Gary Vee to ask questions and do a Q&A. And I just realized like being in the environment, being in his office, seeing kind of how he moves, seeing how he set up his team around him, and even just the conversations, like their team was talking about how, believe it or not, like $100 million a year company is still a pretty small company. And I just remember hearing that. I was like, damn, that doesn't even sound right. Like $100 million is a small company. And so it just forced me to kind of think bigger. And it forced me to just to see somebody else doing it, and to see somebody else doing it at such a high level. For me, it kind of gave me permission of like, oh, I can do this too. It removes the smoke and mirrors of everything, right? We see things online, we see things on social media, we see things on TV and all this stuff. And sometimes it feels so far out of reach and not obtainable. But when you get in those environments and you're around the people, you realize that people are just people. And they're either doing something that you're not doing, or they're not doing something that you're doing. And so if you can figure that out and figure out what those things are and make it work for you, and tailor make it for you, I think it's something that for me I found super beneficial and helpful, to kind of take things from people and learn from what they're trying to do, and not completely duplicate their process of what they're doing, because everything is going to be unique, but taking bits and pieces of what works for you and applying it to your situation. So I don't know. I think it was a really cool kind of experience. And like I said, I think there's so much power in just starting, because once you start, things just kind of evolve and come into place. The right people will come into your life. The right situations will come into your life. You'll learn in real time of why this isn't working, or what it's doing. You can sit there and plan all day, right? But you're not going to really learn until you get started in whatever it is that you're trying to do. And you'll slowly start to gradually increase and get better. And I think that that's what I'm just trying to tell myself, is just keep driving. You're on a road trip, you got a destination to somewhere, and you're on this road, just keep driving. Just keep driving. Sometimes you have to get off the freeway. Sometimes you have to get gas. Sometimes you get tired and have to take a nap. But just get back onto the freeway and keep driving. Get back on track and keep driving. It was something that I heard about, like, and this was another thing that I heard that correlated to the kind of driving scenario. If you have a GPS and you're going somewhere, and say you take a wrong turn, you get off course, the GPS is not going to make you go back to where you started and start over. It's going to reroute you from where you are. Yeah, you might have added an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours to, the total trip time, but it's going to reroute you to where you are. So sometimes we get off course from our stuff. Sometimes we, make a wrong turn or delay ourselves. But the biggest thing is just starting. Just get back on the road and keep driving. And so hopefully this is helpful. It's something that I've been thinking about in real time, and that's why I like these kind of episodes that I can do, because I can talk about things that I'm thinking about that are just on my mind. And yeah, hopefully it's helpful. I appreciate everybody's feedback, comments, likes, shares, subscribes. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing and sharing these episodes with somebody that you think might find it beneficial. So until next time, I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to y'all in a minute. Peace.